Simon Kinny-Lewis, welcome to Australian Musician.
Thanks, Greg. Thanks for having me, mate.
Got a great new album called Pouring Water on a Drowning Man, which we'll talk about soon. But first, I wanted to go way back. Tell me about the music you were into as a teenager and what attracted you to guitar in the first place.
Well, I grew up listening to a lot of blues music. My dad played a lot of old classics around the house, um, Muddy Waters, real rootsy stuff. I actually remember borrowing a little cassette player of his. It was one of those little speakers with the cassettes all in one, and I used to take that down by the chook patch. And we grew up in the country, and he had all these great old blues, recordings that was a really an amazing thing to listen to be around music constantly. And then obviously he had the big sound system and you know basically I grew up listening to that. My brother played guitar as well, and I was always sort of really inspired by him. Um, and Then that sort of ventured. I sort of had the bug by my teenage years, and then I was like most guitar players into the whole, heavily into Hendrix, Stevie Ray Vaughan. Like most blues guitar players go through that, that journey. And who hasn't heard of Stevie Ray Vaughan? But I found myself kind of caught between two worlds of jazz and blues as I got older, as my ears developed. And I kind of started getting a little bit bored with the straight up diatonic blues stuff. I still loved it, and I wanted that same passion from the blues, but to just sort of, improve my harmony. And I was very fortunate that I had a lesson with great jazz guitar player. I'm sure you've heard of him, James Muller.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and so he was. I just had like this one odd lesson. Went over to his place, and he said to me, I explained to him, what I, how I wanted to go with my playing, and he said to me, "Have you heard of Robben Ford?" And this is years back. I hadn't um, I hadn't heard an album of his, and I hadn't even heard any of the Larry Carlton stuff, and the early Crusader days, and guys that were sort of infusing that blues with jazz. And it still took me a little while before I sort of warmed to it, but then something clicked, and I was like, he let me the Talk to Your Daughter album, and I had that for probably about a year. I would catch up to him at a gig. I'd always watch him play in Sydney in the day. He was doing a lot of different projects. One was with Chad Wackerman doing the whole Alan Holdsworth sort of thing that was just like mind blowing. But I yeah, and I'd catch up with him and say, "Hey man, I still got you Talk to Your Daughter records." "Oh man, keep it, just hold on to it." And that album just like changed my whole world. So it gave me the confidence and understanding of how you can take blues, how you can still keep the funkiness and the soulfulness of the blues, but with some added harmony. And yeah, that was really fun.
So fast forward quite a few years, and you're playing and recording with Robben Ford.
Yeah,
How
I
did
texted James about that.
how did that happen?
Well, there was a few different stages. I was recording in California. I was touring there, and the band that was put together for me was from another hero of mine, Chris Cain. And I opened for him on a bunch of shows here in Australia, and then I called his management. I said, "Hey, I was wondering if Chris would, want me to, if there was any opportunity for me to open for Chris in America solo acoustic." And Susie, his manager and partner, said, "We can do one better for you, Simon. We'll get a band for you." So the band was actually two members of the Ford Brothers Blues Band. So they toured with, Robin a lot, Dwayne Pate, did a lot of international tours with Robben and Andy Just, of course. But so we were recording, and every now and then the guys would say, "Hey, have you met Robben?" And I'm like, "Oh no, I'd love to, you know, it'd be my dream come true." But and they would sort of laugh about it. And I asked Robben to play. I emailed his management. I thought, you know, maybe he could play on a track. And then he missed the first album, and then the second one. We were recording again, and I remember we're in the car. I was with my drummer. We're doing a lot of driving, and we're kind of at the end of our tether with our last trip. And I got this email saying that he would record on another day, and so does A. And so he basically, you know, laid out what he needed for the session. There was a fee for carting the amp and all that sort of stuff, but I didn't care. I mean, I wasn't making much money, still not making much money, but it was one of those things that I've got to get Robben on this track. So you know, it started to happen, and he really loved the track. It was a song called Dagger Eyes that I asked him to play wah-wah on, and the day before the session, he emails me and says, "Hey man, sorry, I don't have a wah-wah pedal. Can you just give me a couple of days and I'll sort that out?" You know, which is really funny, like, to hear, because I thought Robben Ford not having a wah-wah pedal. And then all my friends, like, I remember that night when I got the tracks back and then we got mixes and everything. It was just had a couple of really close friends of mine come over, and we're listening to the mixes here in this studio. And it was almost like a couple of guys just like putting on a record for the first time. You know, a couple of school kids. You know, we were so excited. And, you know, I played them the other takes that Robben did, and it was just amazing. So then after that, it was through COVID that I started to put another project together, and no one was touring. So I reached out to another artist. I opened for Josh Smith, and Kirk Fletcher. I opened for both of those guys. And I said, "Hey, would you be interested in featuring?" I had this idea of just putting an album together with some great guitar players on it, you know, just sort of featured guitar players, guys that I'd worked with. And they got back straight away. And then I thought, wonder if Robben would be interested in this. So I put it through, you know, I emailed him, and he basically said, "Hey, this sounds interesting. Happy to explore." Signed R. I was like, "Wow, this is awesome." So that's sort of how that came across. And he was working with Casey Wasner in Nashville at the time. So basically, Casey mixed the record. Robben was in the studio lending an ear for the guitar sounds, and then basically the whole thing happened really quickly. It was I got a bunch of other guys on there, and yeah, it was just, you know, I remember calling him, speaking to him on the phone for the very first time, being very nervous, and the second conversation was much easier because we're kind of just talking, you know, it was muso to muso. We're just talking music. We're talking about the projects, and we're trying to, you know, make it sound great. And I did say to him, I was making a coffee. I said, "Man, there's many mornings I stare into my coffee plunger and ask myself, is this really happening?" You know, because I've been a fan of his music for a long, long time. I remember, you know, I've transcribed so many solos. I've bought nearly every record. So for a musician to get that kind of that acknowledgement from your absolute hero, it was just it was scary. I lost it. It was a hard record because I was going for a lot of health problems as well. So I had diverticulitis that they ended up having to operate on me and take a part of my guts out. And I missed. I was really kicking myself because the one track I kind of didn't really, personally, I didn't feel like I brought over the line in terms of vocals. The guitar playing was fine. It was more singing that was hard after my operation. So basically, you know, I would stall a little bit, say, "Hey guys, sorry, I'm back in hospital," and they were so supportive and great. They didn't know that I had this ongoing health problem until after the record, or until like I sort of, you know, didn't get the last song down, which was "Help the Poor," which Robben's actually playing rhythm on. So then I redid that later and released it as a single. Um, and yeah, I caught up with him at the factory on his last gig a few months ago, and he's such a great guy, really down to earth. Yeah, just that sort of those sort of moments, they sort of never leave you. It's a little vote of confidence from your hero.
Sure. Yeah. So, May this year, you released a new album, Pouring Water on a Drowning Man. Where did you record and over what period of time?
Well, recording, um, that was actually done like at least 12 months ago. So the mixing was a big hold up. I didn't have a lot of money at the time. I had going on about health things, I had a back operation
Right.
that was very costly. And I was told from the doctor that I wouldn't walk again if I didn't have this operation. So it was tough. And so I had to really budget. So the recording, the mixing took a long time. I didn't really have a lot of money for the mixing, and I also, didn't really have a lot of money to pay a lot of session players. I've got two children to feed. That's my priority number one. And basically, my first recording of electric slide guitar was on King Biscuit with Robben, which is kind of funny. Like I never thought of it that way, but it's not. It's always about the music and what serves the song. And I've been performing slide, and I felt I'd got to a level at it where it was sort of I could record with it now, and it was still very very fresh for me. But this record, I realized, well, my slide playing had improved. And even at another level, and I thought, well, I don't have a keyboard player, so I'll just record the slide myself. And so, it's in a way, I was saving money, but at the same time, I realized that actually this is a really cool vibe to have. It's like having another slide guitar player or session player, on the record, sort of filling out the track. So there's a lot of slide on that record. And also, I just want to give a shout out to Brett Garced, because he was extremely inspiring for me. When I did my first band record, I was just starting to muck around with it. And I had a conversation with him a few years back because we're playing the Blues Road show. And I said, man, I remember when he recorded some slide on that record, it was so inspiring for me. And my guide was kind of, for me, I'm a real perfectionist. Like it was kind of there. I'm just trying to remember the song now. There was two songs, Straight Talker and Down in Mississippi. And Brett said to me, man, it sounds fine, man. And I was like, I wasn't confident enough, to release it on a record. So I gave him my guide, and he did it like immaculately. It was just sounded amazing. And that was so, working with these guys, it's just like you upload the file from the Dropbox from wherever studio they've done recorded in the world. And this happened countless times for King Biscuit, because I've got Lockie Dolly on there, Christian Howes, Andy Just, Ray Beadle, the whole list goes on. And it's just so inspiring. Like that's the thing that it really clicked for me. I was like, wow, I know we're not all in the same studio, but it's almost like you're still, when you work with guys like that, it's like, wow, you hear their approach to the song rather than the playing. It's not so much how many notes can you fit in that bar or whatever. These guys are so musical, and it's like when Brett gave me his part, that really made an impression on me to really serve the song, and gave me a lot of inspiration, to write, you know, with that in mind, with the slide guitar in mind, but then keep that fusion of or the jazz blues influence on my playing as well on the record. So I like it because it's kind of diverse. There's a lot of different textures on the record, and it's all guitar. So with a great rhythm section, Anton David Yance on bass and Tony Boyd on drums. So yeah, that's the long answer.
Yeah. Why did you decide that Pouring Water on a Drowning Man would be the title track?
A lot of a lot of stuff hitting me in life. I I don't know. I was listening to a lot of Tony Joe Wright for my songwriting influences, and um, that title popped up from an old blues song, and I thought, wow, what a great. And I feel really bad. I actually can't remember the artist who originally wrote that. I'll have to look it up after this interview. I did at one point, but that title just stuck, and I went, man, this is like what my whole life's been the last few years. With health problems. I've had a lot of grief losing, which I won't go into too much, but losing my family. It's pretty much my dad and I. Um, I lost my brother when I was really young to suicide, and he played guitar, and he was very very inspirational to me. And I don't know, there was a lot of stuff happening where the music, as I was writing this stuff and recording it, it was soothing. It was a medicine. And ironically, it's like got a pretty dark title, but I have to say it's from the heart. The whole thing's sort of basically a process of me sort of blocking all that negative stuff away, all the health problems, all the family abandonment, and all that, and just focusing on the positive things in my life, like my two kids, my wife, my ability to play music and to make people feel something at a show. All that stuff is really sort of all put all together on this record, I feel.
Yeah. Tell me about the guitar on the front cover.
Well, that guitar was a friend of mine, Tim O'Tollivan, builds these great guitars in Sydney, a fantastic luthier. Um, and I had my eye on something similar to what Chris Cain and Robben Ford played, where Robben is in his earlier days. Um, and so I got that from Tim, and it's actually only on 3 songs of the record, mainly because it's still quite a new feeling instrument for me. And this was a really weird thing for, well, not weird for if you're a guitar player listening to this interview, but I did all my solos on that guitar. I used the back of the pick, so the sort of the blunter end, the rounder end. It's the only way I could sort of, not dig into that guitar so much. I think the strings are a little closer together. The action's kind of maybe a little lower, a little more sensitive. And I had experimented with that a little bit, because I know Scott Henderson plays like that, Robben Ford plays like that, and it made a lot of sense, especially with sort of more of the brushier kind of type licks and things that are in my vocabulary. So they're actually sort of my favorite tracks, I think, on the record. And I love the guitar sound. So I'm sort of in between worlds, in between making my mind up of what do I do on this next one. Do I use all of the 535 plus the slide? There's still slide. There's always slide. Well, lately on the records, I don't know if that's how long that's going to last, but because that takes a lot of practice too, But there'll be slide on it, but I don't know if I'm going to use the 535. But it's a beautiful guitar. It's got P90s in it. It's what is it? A little bit bigger than a 335, right? I think I'm correct saying that. A 535 is a little bit bigger. So yeah, and playing live, I've yet to get a proper strap that doesn't sort of slide down. It's very awkward to play standing up. So I've just got to get one of those little. I mean, this is how new this instrument is for me. So, and also, I mean, it's inspiring when you play, have a new sound. That's inspiring in itself on a recording, and just the sound of that is, it really reminds me of a lot of Chris's stuff, Chris Cain, and the early. What was it? There's a beautiful record that Robben put out called Sunrise, and there's like some early stuff with Jimmy Witherspoon that he's playing. Like he's playing a big box of a thing. Like it's similar sort of style guitar, but they were very, and made a great impression, on my early days playing guitar. So yeah, I love the sound of it. So I thought it looks beautiful. Whack it on the front cover.
A lot of your playing on this album has a bit of grit to it. Where does that influence come from?
I think it's just I don't know. It's like I think it's just the sound of that Stratocaster kind of pump. It's a Clapton Strat, so it's when I there's a boost tonal switch in that, so it's actually battery operated, and that gets a real gritty sound. Like if you kind of turn that up, and I know there's a few guitar players out there, slide guitar players in the blues genre that don't go as sort of heavy as that. And I think a lot of guitar players don't because it's harder to control the muting in the right hand with your right hand technique. And fortunately, I'm really good with that. So that wasn't a phase, but I thought, well, I can control it and I can still get a really juicy, gritty tone on it. But I think I was also big Jeff Healey fan. Johnny Winter. My dad cranked Johnny Winter around the house. Roy Buchanan. They're kind of gritty blues players. So, I love that side of it as well. So I think, yeah, it's a really good question. Like, I think in this album, it's like all my influences all in one. All that heavy blues, the gritty stuff, the finesse of the harmony on some solos, like the Robben Ford influence in there. But yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
So,
that clap rat man. It's a beast.
yeah. So playing this material live, have you changed your stage rig up at all, or just using the same old standard stuff you've been playing?
Same old stuff. I had to, unfortunately, I had to get rid of my Supro amp. I was endorsed with those guys because that was literally a backbreaker. 29 kilos or something. And my doctor said I couldn't carry after my operation. I couldn't carry anything more than 5 kilos. So I bought this kid on Gumtree selling a bunch of gear going overseas, and I bought a Boss Katana for like $300. And I remember I was doing a gig down in the city, down at Ramblin' Rascal, and another great guitar player. A shout out to Peter Northcote. He was down there because he lives up the road. His studio's up the road, and he came up and said, "Man, I can't believe you're playing through a Boss Katana." And so that's my rig. I mean, when we're playing these songs live, obviously I can't be overdubbing all the guitar parts. I have a great keyboard player and harmonica player, so we arrange them slightly differently, but all the guitar tones and the songs, and that's the main thing with this album is the songs, and for me the songwriting is really important as well. So as long as we sort of get the arrangements and the songs and we just go for it. I've actually been liking some of the live performances even more. There's just, I mean, you can't really beat live. It's like there's just a thing in the air when you go to a gig, and these songs are really, really fun to play. We've done them quite a bit. As I said, like, the recording was done about 12 months ago. So we actually have been playing a lot of these songs for quite a while. So they'll be super tight for our album launch at Beeves on the 10th of July. Yeah, so that's the vibe. Usually I get harmonica to sort of play some of the slide elements. And Sean also plays keyboard, great keyboard. So it's kind of like a 5-piece band in some sense. It's pretty cool.
Yeah. And you've been signed to a German label. How did that come about, and what does that mean for your music?
Yeah. So that was put together by my German manager. How that all unfolded was I had a guy who had been following my music for years that wanted to to go over to Germany and tour there. And he said to me, hey, we should get you a record label. And I was like, great, like that would be a great idea. But this is such a typical musician response, but I'm always thinking about music. I'm not even thinking about labels and all that stuff. That's the stuff I should be thinking about. And this guy just said, just very, um, just very conversation, like this very relaxed kind of conversation we're having about touring and stuff, and then just said, like, we should get you a label. And then next minute I was on a label, and it was like, and the things that those guys have been doing is just fantastic. Like the benefits of that, obviously, has been more people exposed to the music, the album. We've got amazing team working for me next year in Europe, in Germany and Slovakia, Eastern Europe as well. A new agent through the label as well, who's worked with. He's actually Joe Bonamass's agent. He's works with. He was Prince's agent. So all this stuff is happening, and I've got him, to thank Rolf Teal, to thank very much for organising that. And it was very funny because we gave the 2 records for them to see what they were interested in. We gave them King Biscuit and Pouring Water on a Drowning Man. And it makes a lot of sense why they chose Pouring Water on a Drowning Man, because there's 9 original songs on there with 2 arrangements. And King Biscuit was pretty much just like a cover album. I mean, there's 3 original songs in there, plus there's a whole bunch of other players on there. So it's not really it still showcases my playing, but it's not showcasing it to its fullest potential, which I think Pouring Water on a Drowning Man does. Yeah.
So, being an indie musician, what are the main obstacles to getting heard?
Um, well, you have to email people, like I've done with you. You have to reach out to people. People aren't going to come to you, but if you believe enough in your music, things happen. And I think a lot of young guys are a little underconfident maybe in doing that. When there's a lot of great players out there, and I think you do need to have that business, side to you. You need to be on top of that. It's very important, because otherwise you're just going to be playing in your bedroom your whole life, which I have to say I've done a big part of that, but it's all, I believe, like I've done a lot of playing and a lot of recording, and I think all that stuff, comes to fruition when you do get good people that can help manage you on a record label behind you. They see that, oh, hang on, here's a guy that basically is really into this, is like, this is his life, and absolute dedication. And I mean, I had the art guy at the Six Records say, hey man, just wanted to say, I mean, these guys don't really talk to you at all about the music side of it. It's all about the graphic stuff. Just want to say, we've been listening to your record in the office, and it sounds great. And, all that sort of stuff. It's like, yeah, you feel like you have done something right musically. The real trick is you have to get it out there. You have to email, you have to contact. I record all my solos a lot of the time. Couple of reasons. One is, like, I'm not forced to edit anything. It's like I don't want it to be like this. I want it to sound like a real live, how I play live, and not make the perfect solo. There no doubt there's moments where I'll just go over take after take after take, and I'm still searching for that really good take, obviously, but it has to be fluent, has to connect in an organic way, and that's really, really important. And that requires a lot of practice. I was dumbfounded the other day. I don't know if you've heard of this, but there was this thing popped up on YouTube with a lot of young guitar players, you know, basically slowing their solos down and then speeding them up and then miming them, And there was this one guy from Italy he's all over the net. So, I could drop his name. It won't be. It's not such a big deal. But Jaco Maturo, when I found out that guy was I kind of knew he was kind of miming stuff, but it was like, man, and he's made a lot of money from it. Like, and he was ripping off a couple of friends of mine that were actually playing, putting out these solos that he stole those solos note for note. And it was just like, man, when you, like me, I'm sitting down working my ass off you know, with the camera on, really doing this stuff. And it's like these guys are kind of just ripping off other people's solos and not even playing them at speed. And they've got 2 million followers. You know, it's tough to take, but that's, you know, that's the industry. You know, you have to be true to yourself. At the end of the day, I can go on stage and perform, and I'm very, very comfortable, and I know we're going to do a great show with the band, and people are going to love it. You know, with guys like that, won't be able to do that. You know, so that's you know, that's the upside to it. You know, music is you know, for me, it's such a special thing. You need to be true to yourself always. Yeah.
So you're rugging up and coming down to Melbourne in July. Um, what happens for the rest of 2025 after that?
I haven't even looked at my schedule because I know it's really big. I'm like, it's a bit daunting when I look at all the dates. Um, so what do we have? We've got 4 in Melbourne, 10th of July at Beads, 12th at 12. Sorry, 11th of July at 12 Bar Belgrave, 13th, 12th of July, sorry, at Mimo Hall. I'm doing the Blues Guitar Roadshow again with John McNamara. I love doing that. And then the 13th of July, Blues and Roots Way Out West. The rest of the calendar, I'm back in Sydney. I'm doing a bunch of gigs here. I'm doing International Blues Day. I've got another show at Lazy Bones on August 17 with a horn section. So that's going to be fun with a sax and trombone player incorporating in the gig, just to sort of change it up a bit. And I've always wanted to play with horns. I had a really cool gig with a horn section about 6 months ago. I thought, oh, I got to do that again, you know. And then I'm back to Melbourne in October. I've got a big run there, actually. There's like 6 gigs or something there. And then back to Sydney, then up to Brisbane. And then, yeah, I mean, anyone can check out all the gigs at sklblues.com under shows. Yeah, it's on Bands in Town. And then off to Europe next year, and then South Australia next year, early next year. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Well, Simon, it's been great to chat. Pouring Water on a Drowning Man is out now. You've done a great job. It's a vibrant electric album that all guitar fans or all music fans should have a listen to. And we look forward to seeing you on stage.
Thanks so much for your time, mate. I really appreciate it.